The ship was dying, could feel it in her bones as this grace shook and screamed through the atmosphere of Prime. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. The sound of tearing metal filled her ears. People were screaming, praying, crying. She held onto her seat with white knuckles and watched through the small window as fire danced across the ship's wing. They were not supposed to be here. This planet was marked as forbidden in every star chart. They had killed 3 expeditions before. Entire crews, hundreds of people, wiped out in days. The United Earth Council had declared the planet off-limits forever. But the ship's navigation system had failed, and gravity had pulled them down like a cruel hand. She had spent 12 years studying alien life forms. She had dreamed of first contact since she was a little girl looking up at the stars and wondering who lived among them. She had imagined it would be beautiful, a meeting of minds, a moment of wonder. Not this, never this. The ship hit the ground with a force that threw from her seat. Her head struck something hard, and the world went black. When she woke, the silence was worse than the noise had been. Smoke filled her lungs. She coughed and crawled through twisted metal and broken glass. Bodies lay everywhere. Her friends, people she had eaten breakfast with that morning. Now they were gone. Pulled herself through a gap in the hull and fell onto soft purple grass. The sky above was amber and gold, like a sunset that never ended. Beautiful. So beautiful it hurt to look at. She lay there for a long moment, bleeding from cuts she could not count, and simply breathed. She was alive. Somehow, impossibly, she was alive. The ground beneath her vibrated. At first she thought it was the ship settling. Then she heard them, footsteps, heavy, many, coming closer. Forced herself to sit up. Her vision was blurry, and blood ran down her face from a wound on her forehead. She wiped it away and looked toward the tree line. They emerged from the forest like shadows given form. She had seen pictures in classified files, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. They stood 7 feet tall, maybe more. Their bodies were covered in thick fur the color of storm clouds. Their faces were like wolves, but their eyes burned like copper fire. They walked on 2 legs, but there was nothing human about them. Every movement spoke of power, of speed, of death. They carried spears, long black weapons decorated with bones and feathers. The tips gleamed with a sharpness that promised quick ends. There were 12 of them, a hunting pack, and at their front walked the largest one had ever seen. Scars covered his muzzle and chest. One of his ears was torn. He moved with the confidence of a creature who had never known fear, who had never needed to. This was the Alpha. She did not know his name yet, but she knew what he was, the leader, the killer, the one who would decide if she lived or died. The pack spread out around her in a half circle. They made no sound except for low growls that felt in her chest rather than heard with her ears. Subsonic communication. She remembered reading about it. They could speak in frequencies humans could not hear. They were talking about her right now, deciding her fate, and she could not understand a single word. Stepped forward. His copper eyes studied her with cold intelligence. There was no hatred in that gaze, no anger, just assessment. He was looking at her the way a hunter looks at prey, measuring, calculating. Tried to stand. Her legs would not work. She managed to get to her knees and stayed there, swaying, fighting to stay conscious. Some part of her brain told her to run, to fight, to do something. But she knew it was pointless. She could not outrun them. She could not fight them. She was a scientist, not a soldier. She had never fired a weapon in her life. Raised his spear. The others did the same. 12 black points aimed at her heart. This was it. This was how she died. Alone on a forbidden planet, surrounded by creatures who saw her as nothing more than an invader. She thought of her mother back on Earth. She thought of the stars she would never explore. She thought of all the discoveries she would never make. Then she heard it. A small sound, a whimper, coming from the wreckage behind her. They heard it too. Their ears moved, tracking the sound. Eyes shifted from to the crashed ship. His growl changed pitch. Something was wrong. She could see it in the sudden tension of his body, the way his warriors shifted their weight. The whimper came again, weak, frightened, in pain. Turned her head. There beneath a piece of twisted hull something was trapped, something small, something covered in gray fur. A cub, no bigger than a medium dog. It must have been near the crash site when the ship came down. Curious. Young. It had come to investigate the falling star, and now it was trapped and hurt and crying for help. For a moment nobody moved. The warrior stood frozen. Spear remained raised, but his attention was fixed on the wreckage, on the cub. His cub, someone's cub, it did not matter whose. Among all cubs belonged to the pack. Understood something in that moment. She understood that what happened next would change everything. The cub was hurt. The cub needed help, and she was the only one close enough to reach it. She could stay still, wait for them to help their own, hope they would forget about her in the chaos, or she could move, she could try to help, and probably die for it. It was not really a choice. Had never been able to ignore something in pain. It was why she became a scientist instead of a soldier. It was why she had chosen xenobiology, the study of alien life. Because she believed that all life, no matter how strange, deserved understanding, deserved care. She began to crawl toward the wreckage. Behind her made a sound like thunder, a warning, a threat. The spears tracked her movement but did not stop. She could not stop. The cub was crying and nothing else mattered, crawled through broken glass and sharp metal. Her hands bled, her knees bled. She did not care. Behind her the warriors growled and shifted. She could feel their eyes on her back like hot coals. One wrong move and they would kill her. She knew this. She accepted it, but she kept moving. The cub's whimpers grew louder as she got closer. It was trapped under a large piece of the ship's hull. The metal had fallen at an angle, creating a small space beneath it. The cub was inside that space, unable to get out. Could see its eyes now. Copper like the adults, but brighter, younger, filled with pain and fear. She reached the wreckage and lay flat on her stomach. The cub was just a few feet away. It saw her and made a sound she had never heard before. Not a growl, not a whimper, something between a bark and a cry. It was afraid of her. Of course it was. She was a strange creature, an alien, a monster from the sky. Spoke softly. She did not know if the cub could understand her words, but she hoped it could understand her tone. Gentle, calm, safe. "It is okay," she said. "I will not hurt you. I want to help. Just stay still. Please stay still." The cub's ears flattened against its head. It tried to back away from her, but it could not move. Its leg was trapped, and now could see why it was crying so much. The leg was broken, badly broken. The bone had not come through the skin, but the angle was all wrong. Every small movement must have been agony. Behind her barked a command. Did not understand the word, but she understood the meaning. Stop. Do not touch. Move away. She ignored him. Her hands found the edge of the metal piece. It was heavy, so heavy, but fear and determination gave her strength she did not know she had. She pushed. The metal groaned and shifted. She pushed harder. Her muscles screamed. Her wounds opened wider. Blood dripped from her arms onto the purple grass. The metal moved, just a little, just enough. The cub was free, but it did not run. It could not run. It tried to stand and fell immediately, crying out in pain. Its broken leg would not hold its weight. Did not think. She simply acted. She reached out and gathered the cub into her arms. The reaction was immediate. The warriors surged forward, roared. The sound was so loud that ears rang. She felt the vibration in her chest, in her bones, in her teeth. It was a sound designed to freeze prey in place, to paralyze with fear. But did not freeze. She held the cub against her chest and turned to face the pack. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. Her body was shaking, but her arms stayed steady around the small, furry body in her grasp. "I am not hurting it," she said. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "Look at me. Look at what I am doing. I am helping. Not hurting, helping." The cub struggled in her arms. It was strong for its size. Its claws scratched her skin, drawing more blood, but held on. She held on, and she began to do something she had not done since childhood. She began to hum. It was a song her mother used to sing to her when she was scared, when storms came and lightning split the sky, when nightmares woke her in the dark hours, when she fell and scraped her knees and thought the pain would never end. Her mother would hold her close and hum that simple tune, and somehow everything would be okay. The cub went still. Its ears, which had been flat with fear, slowly rose. Its copper eyes, wide and wild, began to calm. It stopped struggling. It stopped scratching. It simply lay in its arms and listened to the strange sound coming from the strange creature. The warriors stopped advancing. Its roar faded to silence. They watched. They all watched. 12 predators and one small human, frozen in a moment that none of them understood. Kept humming. She sat down on the ground, cradling the cub in her lap, and began to examine its leg. She was not a doctor. She was a scientist, but she had basic medical training like all crew members, enough to know what she was looking at. The break was clean. No bone through skin. No major blood vessels damaged. If she could set the bone and keep the leg still, the cub might heal. It might walk again. It might live a normal life. She needed supplies. She looked around and saw pieces of her uniform scattered among the wreckage, strips of fabric. They would work. Not perfect, but good enough. Still humming, still keeping her movements slow and gentle, began to tear strips from her jacket. The cub watched her with curious eyes. It no longer seemed afraid. It seemed interested, like it was trying to understand what she was doing and why. "This will hurt," whispered. "I am sorry, I am so sorry, but it will help, I promise." She did not know if the cub understood her words, but when she took its broken leg in her hands, it did not bite. It did not claw. It just looked at her with those bright copper eyes and made a small sound, almost like trust. Took a deep breath, then she set the bone. The cub screamed. The sound cut through the air like a knife. Heard the warriors shift behind her, heard their growls rise in pitch, but she did not stop. She could not stop. She held the bone in place and began to wrap it with the fabric strips. Tight, firm, secure. The cub's scream faded to whimpers, then to soft sounds, then to silence. It lay in her lap, exhausted from pain, and watched her work with half-closed eyes. When finished, the leg was splinted. It was not pretty, it was not professional, but it would hold. The bone would heal, the cub would walk again. She looked down at the small creature in her arms. It looked back up at her. And somehow in that moment something passed between them. Not words, not thoughts, just feeling, just understanding. "You helped me," the cub's eyes seemed to say. "You hurt me to help me, and I let you." Felt tears running down her face. She did not know when she had started crying. She did not try to stop. Around her the warriors stood in silence. Their spears were still raised. Their eyes were still fixed on her, but something had changed. She could feel it. The air was different. The tension was different. Took a step forward, then another. He moved slowly, carefully, like he was approaching something he did not understand. Something that might be dangerous but might also be something else entirely. Held the cub closer and waited for whatever would come next, stopped 3 feet away from. He towered over her like a mountain. His shadow blocked out the amber sky. She could smell him now. Earth and forest and something wild, something ancient. He was the most terrifying thing she had ever seen in her life. But she did not look away. She held the cub in her arms and met his copper eyes with her own dark ones. She was small. She was weak. She was bleeding and broken and alone, but she would not look away. The cub made a soft sound. It shifted in its lap and pressed its nose against her hand. The touch was warm, trusting, like a child seeking comfort from a parent. His eyes moved from to the cub. He studied the splint on its leg, the careful wrapping, the way the small creature lay calm and quiet in the arms of a stranger, his massive head tilted to one side. Did not know what he was thinking. She did not know if he was about to kill her or spare her. All she knew was that the cub in her arms was tired and hurt and needed rest, so she did what felt natural, what felt right. She began to rock gently, back and forth, the same motion her mother had used, the same motion humans had used for thousands and thousands of years, a universal language of comfort, of safety, of love. The warriors behind shifted. Some of them made sounds they could not hear properly. They were talking again, debating, arguing about her, about what she was doing, about what it meant. The cub's eyes began to close, its breathing slowed. Despite the pain, despite the fear, despite everything, it was falling asleep, in the arms of an alien creature, on a battlefield that should have been its death ground. Felt her heart swell with something she could not name. This small being trusted her, after everything. After the crash and the pain and the terror, it trusted her enough to sleep. Crouched down, the motion was sudden and flinched, but he did not attack. He simply lowered himself until his eyes were level with hers. This close, she could see the individual hairs on his muzzle, the scars that told stories of 100 battles, the depth of intelligence in those copper eyes. He was studying her, not as prey anymore, as something else, a puzzle, a mystery, something his experience had not prepared him for. Spoke softly. She did not know if he could understand, but silence felt wrong. "Its leg will heal," she said. "I set the bone, I wrapped it tight. It needs rest, it needs food, it needs care, but it will heal. It will walk again, it will run again." Made a low sound, not a growl, something different, something almost questioning. One of his massive hands reached out. His breath caught in her throat. The hand was bigger than her head. The claws were longer than her fingers. One swipe could end her life in an instant. But the hand did not hurt her. It moved past her and touched the cub's sleeping head. Gentle, so gentle, like a father checking on a sleeping child. The cub made a small happy sound in its sleep and pressed closer to his warmth. His eyes met again, and for the first time she saw something other than cold assessment. She saw confusion. She saw wonder. She saw the beginning of something that might have been respect. The moment stretched, seconds that felt like hours. The amber sky burned above them. The purple grass swayed in a soft wind. The wreckage of the ship smoked behind them. And in the middle of it all, a human woman and an alien warrior looked at each other across a gulf that should have been impossible to cross. Did not know what made her do it. Later, she would try to explain. She would say that it felt natural, that it felt necessary, that it felt like the only thing in the universe she could do in that moment. But the truth was simpler than that. She loved this small creature in her arms. She had known it for only minutes. She would probably die for it within the hour, but she loved it. And love has its own language, its own gestures, its own way of speaking across the silence between souls. Leaned down, she pressed her lips to the soft fur of the cub's forehead. A kiss, the most human gesture of all, the thing mothers gave to children, the thing lovers gave to each other, the thing that said without words, "I cherish you, I will protect you, you are precious to me." The cub stirred but did not wake. It made another small sound and nuzzled deeper into his embrace. Went rigid. The warriors behind him made sounds of shock, alarm, something that might have been outrage, spears raised higher, feet shuffled forward. The tension that had been easing suddenly returned, 10 times stronger than before. Looked up at, she saw something in his face that she did not expect. Not anger, not disgust, not the cold fury of a predator whose young had been violated. She saw recognition. She saw a father who had pressed his own forehead to the foreheads of his own cubs, who had made his own gestures of protection and love, who understood, on some level deeper than thought or culture or species, exactly what he had just witnessed. The silence stretched on. The warriors waited for their alpha's command, kill or spare, attack or retreat. They would follow whatever order he gave. They had always followed. They would always follow. did not give an order. Instead, he did something that no had ever done to a human, something that would be remembered in songs and stories for generations to come. He lowered his spear, not to attack, not to threaten. He lowered it to the ground and laid it in the purple grass. Then he pressed his forehead to us. The touch was warm, rough. The fur of his brow brushed against her skin. She could feel his breath on her face, hot and wild. She could feel the vibration of a sound too low for her to hear, a sound that the warriors behind him could hear clearly. She did not know what he was saying, but she felt it, somewhere in her chest, somewhere in her soul. "Welcome, pack friend, protected one." When pulled back, his copper eyes were different, warmer, softer, almost kind. Behind him, one by one, the warriors lowered their spears. The warriors did not understand at first, could see it in their faces. Their copper eyes moved from to her and back again, their ears twisted with confusion. Their growls were questions without answers. But they followed. One by one, spear after spear touched the ground. The sound of their tips hitting the soft earth was like rain falling, gentle, final, complete. Rose to his full height. He turned to face his pack and made a series of sounds that could not hear, but she could see the effect on the warriors. Their confusion slowly changed to understanding. Their tension slowly changed to acceptance. Whatever was saying, they believed him. They trusted him. The largest of the warriors, a female with silver streaks in her gray fur, stepped forward. Her eyes studied for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She bowed her head. Not a full bow, just a small tilt, an acknowledgement, a greeting. Did not know what to do, so she bowed her head in return. The female made a sound that might have been approval. Then she turned and barked orders to the others. The pack began to move. 2 warriors approached the wreckage of the ship and started to search through it. 3 others formed a perimeter around and the sleeping cub. The rest gathered around, listening to his instructions. Sat very still. She did not know what was happening. She did not know if she was safe or still in danger. All she knew was that she was alive, the cub was alive, and for now, that was enough. The sun began to set. The amber sky turned to deep orange, then to purple, then to black. Stars appeared, thousands of them, millions of them, more than had ever seen in her life. The light pollution of Earth's cities had hidden most of the stars from her. But here, on this alien world, the universe spread out above her in all its impossible beauty. A warrior approached with something in his hands, food, some kind of meat cooked over a fire she had not noticed being built. He held it out to her without speaking. His face was hard to read, but his gesture was clear. "Eat, you need strength." Took the food with trembling hands. It smelled strange, wild, but she was hungry, so hungry. She had not eaten since before the crash. How long ago was that? Hours, days, she could not remember. She ate. The meat was tough but flavorful, different from anything she had tasted before, but good, filling, warm. The cub woke up when the smell of food reached its nose. Its eyes opened slowly. It looked up with confusion that quickly changed to recognition. It remembered her. It remembered what she had done. The small creature pressed closer to her chest and made a sound that was almost like purring. Another warrior brought water in a container made from some kind of plant, drank deeply. The water was cool and clean. It tasted like life. Approached as she finished eating. He crouched down in front of her again. In his hands was a bundle of soft materials, bandages made from leaves and vines, medicine made from plants she did not recognize. He held them out to her. "For your wounds," his gesture said, "let us help you as you helped us." His eyes filled with tears. She took the bandages and the medicine. Her hands shook as she applied them to her cuts and scrapes. The medicine stung at first, then became cool and soothing. The pain in her body began to fade. The female warrior with silver fur came and sat beside her. She did not speak. She did not touch. She simply sat, close enough to offer warmth, close enough to offer protection. far enough to respect boundaries she did not yet understand. Looked at her, the warrior looked back. "Thank you," said. The warrior tilted her head. She did not understand the words, but she understood the tone, the gratitude, the respect. She made a soft sound in return. "You are welcome," the sound seemed to say. "We protect our own." Our own turned the thought over in her mind. Was she one of them now? Was that what gesture had meant? The pressing of foreheads, the lowering of spears. Had she been accepted into their pack? She did not know, she could not know, not yet. There was so much she did not understand about these creatures. Their culture, their customs, their language, everything was new, everything was strange, everything was terrifying and wonderful all at once. But she was alive. The cub was healing. The warriors had put down their weapons, and for the first time since the crash, allowed herself to feel something she had not felt in hours. Hope. The night grew cold. The warriors built fires around their camp. They brought more food, more water, soft materials for to sleep on. They treated her not as a prisoner, not as an enemy, but as a guest. A strange and confusing guest, but a guest nonetheless. Came to check on her one more time before she slept. He looked at the cub, still resting in her arms. He looked at her wounds, now bandaged and healing. He made a sound that might have been satisfaction. Then he did something that surprised her more than anything else that had happened that day. He spoke a word she could understand. One word, just one, in a voice rough and deep and clearly unused to human sounds. "Safe." Stared at him, her mouth fell open. How did he know that word? Where had he learned it? From the previous expeditions, from recordings or broadcasts? She had so many questions, but did not give her time to ask. He rose and walked away into the darkness. The silver-furred female took his place, settling down nearby to keep watch. Lay back on the soft bedding the warriors had made for her. The cub curled against her chest. Its small heart beat steady and calm. Its breathing was slow and deep. It was safe. She was safe. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new wonders. She would have to learn to communicate with these creatures. She would have to find a way to contact Earth. She would have to figure out what came next. But tonight she would rest. Tonight she would hold a small life in her arms and feel grateful that she had chosen kindness over fear. The stars wheeled overhead, the fires crackled, the warriors kept watch, and slept. 3 years passed like dreams. Stood on a balcony made of dark stone, and watched the twin suns rise over Prime. The sky turned from black to purple to amber. The forests below stretched endlessly toward mountains she had once thought she would never see. Birds with 6 wings sang songs that had become familiar to her ears. This was home now, strange as it seemed, impossible as it should have been. This wild, beautiful, dangerous world was home. Behind her, the sound of claws on stone announced a visitor. She did not need to turn to know who it was. The footsteps were lighter than the adults, faster, more eager, the footsteps of youth. Stood beside her. He was no longer the small cub she had pulled from the wreckage. He had grown tall and strong. His gray fur had darkened to the color of thunderclouds. His copper eyes held a brightness that made others stop and stare. But when he looked at, those eyes still held the same trust they had held 3 years ago, the same love. "The council meets today," said. His voice was deep now. He had learned to speak her language just as she had learned to speak his. Both of them spoke with accents. Both of them made mistakes. Neither of them cared. "I know," replied. "Are you nervous?" His ears twitched. Among that gesture meant many things: amusement, uncertainty, hope. "The elders will ask difficult questions," he said. "They always do. They will want to know if the humans can truly be trusted, if this peace can truly last, if the Mothwren speaks true when she says her people wish only friendship." Mothwren, one who shields, the name they had given her after that first night, the name that had spread across the planet like fire, the name that had changed everything. Smiled, "And what will you tell them?" looked at her. His eyes were serious. His voice was firm. I will tell them what I know. I will tell them that when I was broken and afraid and alone, a creature from the stars held me in her arms. I will tell them that she healed my wounds even though my people had killed hers. I will tell them that she kissed my forehead when I was nothing but a frightened cub, and in that moment, I learned that love does not care about species or boundaries or the mistakes of the past. Felt tears in her eyes. She did not try to hide them. Among the tears were not weakness. They were truth. They were the heart speaking louder than the voice. You have grown wise, she said. I had a good teacher, replied. They stood together in silence as the suns climbed higher. Below, the city was waking up. A city that had not existed 3 years ago. A city built by human and hands working together. Stone and metal, forest and technology, 2 worlds becoming one. The embassy was the heart of the city. A great building where representatives from Earth met with pack leaders from across Prime. Where treaties were signed and disputes were settled. Where children from both species played together in gardens designed for their shared joy. It had not been easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. The first year had been the hardest. Many did not trust the humans. Many humans feared there were arguments. There were fights. There were moments when everything almost fell apart. But had been patient and had been firm. Together they had shown both sides what was possible. A human and an alpha standing side by side speaking with one voice. We do not have to be enemies. We can be more. We can be family. The word family had no direct translation in the language. They used pack instead. But the meaning was the same. People who belonged to each other. People who protected each other. People who loved each other not because they had to, but because they chose to. Had been accepted into his pack. She was the first human to receive that honor. She was not the last. Now hundreds of humans lived on Prime. Scientists and teachers, doctors and engineers, artists and dreamers. They had come not as conquerors but as guests. They had learned the customs and respected the traditions. They had offered knowledge in exchange for wisdom. They had built a future no one had thought possible. The door behind opened. Heavy footsteps, a presence like a mountain walking. Joined them on the balcony. He was older now, more gray in his fur, more scars on his body, but his eyes were still sharp. His spirit was still strong. He would lead his pack for many more years. The ships from Earth have arrived, he said. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. They bring diplomats, new families, more supplies for the joint research station. Good, said, we have room for them, we have room for everyone. Made a sound of agreement. He looked out at the city below. The city that his people and his people had built together. The city that stood as proof that the impossible was only the beginning of the possible. I never understood humans, he said slowly. When we first saw your ships in the sky, we saw only threats, invaders, enemies to be destroyed. We thought we knew what you were. We were wrong. Looked at him. What do you think we are now? Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. His voice was soft, almost gentle. Coming from such a fearsome creature, the gentleness meant more than any display of strength ever could. You are strange beings, soft, weak, fragile. You have no claws, no fangs, no fur to protect you from the cold. By every measure, you should not have survived the universe. But you did. You survived and you spread across the stars. And now I understand why. He turned to face her. His copper eyes met her dark ones. The same eyes that had once promised death now promised something very different. You survived because of love. Because of the thing that makes you hold a wounded cub even when you are surrounded by enemies. The thing that makes you kiss a stranger's forehead and mean it. The thing that makes you see family in creatures who look nothing like you. That thing is your strength. That thing is your weapon. That thing is why my people lowered their spears. Felt her heart swell. She reached out and took his massive hand in her small one. He let her. He always let her. We are not so different, she said. You and me and human. We all want the same things. Safety for our children, peace for our people, a future worth fighting for. Nodded, yes, we are not so different. Below, children were playing in the gardens. Human children and cubs running together, laughing together, learning together. They did not see differences. They saw only friends, only family, only the beautiful, impossible future that the adults were still learning to believe in. Watched them with a smile on his face. Someday he would lead his own pack. Someday he would tell his own cubs the story of how peace began. The story of a crashed ship and a broken leg and a gesture that changed the world. The story of the human who kissed a fallen cub's forehead and the alphas who lowered their spears. Held's hand and watched the future play in the garden. She thought about her mother back on Earth. She thought about the little girl who had looked up at the stars and dreamed of first contact. She thought about all the pain and fear and impossible hope that had led to this moment. It was worth it, all of it, every tear, every wound, every moment of doubt. This was what humanity could do. This was what humanity was for, not conquest, not domination, not fear. Connection, understanding, love. The suns rose higher. The city woke fully. And somewhere in the garden below, a human child and a cub held hands and ran together toward tomorrow. The beginning was only the beginning. Everything else was yet to come.